didn't think this game could get much weirder than the last one, but I was very, very wrong. The PlayStation port of Philosopher's Stone was a bit of a mixed bag. It had quite a bit of charm to it. I mean, look at that wee beauty. But it was filled with half-baked ideas, which created a somewhat lackluster and frustrating experience. I'm only 1 coin short! 1 coin! With Chamber of Secrets on PC being a massive improvement over its predecessor, it's time to see if the PlayStation port will be the same. The storybook cutscenes are still present, which I'm honestly not surprised at given the PlayStation's limited hardware. My only gripe is that they didn't stick with the previous art style. Instead, they went with these 3D visuals that look like they came from the Food Fight movie.
With Alexa!
The game then starts us off at the Burrow rather than the castle like the PC port did. This game certainly brings back a lot of good memories. There's just something about the Burrow in this game that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Though, that could just be the nostalgia talking. Our first task is to flipendo these crates so we can go up to the attic and stop the family ghoul from making a lot of noise. I'm assuming this means the Weasleys don't have, you know, a staircase? This leads us to a minigame where we have to catch 60 pipes before they hit the floor. Why the Weasleys have random bits of pipe lying around is completely beyond me. Also, there are so many ways to open up a Harry Potter game with spellcasting, exploration, Quidditch, but no, we went for catching pipes. We then bump into Ginny, who just recaps the Puffskein tutorial from the last game. You lead them to a bush, they eat the bush, they produce a bean. I don't know how, and quite frankly, I don't want to know. Fun fact, I never had to do anything like this again, so that was a nice waste of time. Again, this is how they've decided to open the game, people. Ginny, why are you running away like birds are shitting on your head? Finally, we're introduced to 2 new game mechanics. The first one is denoming, which I actually found to be quite fun.
Nice one! You hit the worst part.
At least, it is when I don't have to wait on the counter. I could run a bath at this rate. I think I can feel my bones deteriorating. For crying out loud, hurry up! The second new mechanic is dueling, which is introduced by Fred and George. At this point, I'm thinking the Weasleys are possibly the worst hosts in human history. It's the first time Harry's visiting them, and so far he's been made to do all their chores, and now they're abusing him. Actually, come to think of it, I guess they're making him feel right at home. You know, I actually think the dueling here is way more fun than the PC version. At first it seems pretty straightforward. You cast Flipendo and dodge your opponent's spells. Duh. But then you're introduced to special jinxes. You gain access to these by getting your opponent to hit these glowing objects. This will spit out an orb for you to collect, and as a result, you'll get a random spell with a unique ability.
Nice work from...
Oh my god, Harry just tried to murder Fred!
Potter, why did you kill the Weasley boy?
Where did you learn such a spell?
Did you put your name in the goblet of fire?
I also love what happens to your opponent once you beat them. Why didn't they add this to the movies? I'll tell you what I don't enjoy though, and that's reliving the flue powder and flying car levels. While I didn't find them challenging this time around, I'm pretty sure it woke up some form of PTSD, cause boy did I hate these as a kid. Each time I reached the edge here, I couldn't help but go, no, 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 no! Also, why would anyone want to travel this way? You're all gonna end up with flayed skin and a broken back. As for the train level, I remember my friend and I having a rough time with this back in the day. Probably because whenever the train slammed into us, it was so loud it sent us into an immediate panic. And so we ended up bashing into things and missed the speed boosters and repair kits. Which, come to think of it, if the teachers didn't want students to take flying cars to school, perhaps they shouldn't have made the route so flying car accessible. Now that we've finally reached the castle, let's talk about one of the most important parts of a Harry Potter game, the exploration. Which, I'm happy to say, has seen a huge improvement. The mini-games that were hidden behind secret passages have been replaced with fully designed rooms, filled with puzzles and platforming sections. Some of which you can't complete until you unlock certain spells, which encourages you to come back later. Unfortunately, there are still a number of issues. Take this moment where I fancied exploring a bit before continuing the main story. I hadn't realised that the front hall meant the entrance hall, but no biggie, right? I'll just go back through the door and... Oh wait, I can't. The door locked behind me. Why? I was just in there. So now I'm forced to go the long way round. I'm being punished for wanting to explore. And do you remember how in the last game you were sometimes allowed to explore at your own pace, and then other times you were hit with mission after mission? Yeah, well that's back as well. There's a moment where you need to go to potions, where Snape just rehashes the Wiggenweld class from the previous game. Which is funny because I'm convinced I came across even less cauldrons in this game. After that, you bump into Hagrid, who whisks you off to Denoma's garden. Then after that, you're forced into a Quidditch match against Malfoy, and then after that, you go to Diagon Alley to get ingredients for the Polyjuice potion. Then finally, you can go back to the castle and resume your exploring. That's about half an hour worth of gameplay where any sort of freedom you have is gone. Now what about the collectibles? Well, the wizard cards make a return, and they are used to unlock jewels in Gryffindor Tower. If you manage to collect all the cards and defeat each house champion, you'll gain access to the secret Founder's Tower. I managed to beat Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, but I didn't collect enough cards for the Slytherin jewel, so I had to look up the reward, and boy am I glad I didn't waste my time on this, because it's possibly the biggest anticlimax I've ever seen. All you get is this empty room and a book of concept art. That's it. That's what you get for taking the time to collect all the cards and defeat everyone. The only thing that's a bigger waste of time is when I check if I've got a match on Tinder. As for Bertie Bott's every flavour beans, this mechanic has had a major downgrade. Say goodbye to the secret portraits and prizes. The only thing these are good for now is to exchange them for wizard cards with Fred and George. And you can only buy 5 of them. By the time I finished the game, I wondered, wait, is that it? Is that really all I can do with them? Turns out the answer is no. See this door that says out of bounds? Well, initially, I thought it was just a door that leads to nowhere. A lot of games have those, so I thought nothing of it. But it turns out that if you collect 500 beans, the door will unlock and you'll get the Flipendo Duo upgrade. Did the game give me any indication that this was a thing? Of course not! I mean, why would it? It's so unbelievably obvious, right? I wish I had thought to look this up before. I mean, it's embarrassing that I've missed this spell twice. So here's a bit of advice. Do not trade your beans for cards at the start of the game. Save all of it and get that upgrade as soon as you possibly can. Speaking of spells, let's talk about the classes. The structure is almost identical to the last game, but with some minor changes. You still have to race the class before the timer runs out, but now if you arrive before this red marker, you'll be awarded a trophy. Was the attendance that bad that they had to bribe the kids? You all know that you're going to a magic school, right? Learning spells has also had a few tweaks, as you now get a grade at the end of this minigame. This is a lot harder than you might think. Since it's no longer a matter of if you manage to hit the button or not, you now have to be precise on where you land, and the pass mark is pretty high. Every time I was just shy from getting an A, which is pretty embarrassing if you ask me. I mean, why do I find this easier than this? Oh, come on! Luckily, if you really want to get a perfect score, you can revisit these classes as many times as you want. Cause, you know, that's really what kids want, being told they suck at school and suck at games. Now what about the spells themselves? Well, to start, we've got Incendio Duo, which is pretty much Incendio from the last game, but without that irritating minigame. Oh, and you can hit slugs with it as well. And if you thought that was underwhelming, we also have Verdimillious Duo, which is exactly the same as the last game. You can't just go around slapping Duo at the end of everything and calling it a new spell. This is just downright lazy. This is the equivalent of Sony selling a PlayStation 6, but it's just a PS5 in a different colour. And what makes this even more frustrating is that technically, Harry should be able to get past all the secret rooms since he already learned these spells last year. Why is this such a problem? I've done this before! The only new spell that's introduced is Petrificus Totalis, and I'm not kidding here, you can only use it in that one level. So honestly, Dobby was right. Harry shouldn't have went back to Hogwarts. He's learned nothing this year and nearly died in the process. It's just as well there's no tuition fees, because if there was, I'd be pissed. but not as pissed as I got during the final stages. So, we need to get to Lockhart's office, and despite the fact he's got the brain the size of a pea, he somehow managed to create the most frustrating defense mechanism ever. Why is it so frustrating? Well, it takes a long time before the opening gets to you, so you'll be standing about waiting, get bored, and then by the time you spot your chance to move, it's too late. You get sucked into the vortex and sent all the way back! Or worse, you think you've got an opening, but it's actually a trick. I can't tell you the amount of times I had to go over this. It takes so long that I forget what the pattern is, and it just catches me off guard. By the time I made it past the vortexes and the knights, I came across 2 doors. Neither of them gave me much information other than use door. So I think, okay, there's maybe more to explore or whatever. I decided to go through this one and... Wait. No! I'm back at the vortex rooms. F*** you, game. What is it with you and locking doors? And just to add insult to injury, that other door would have kicked off the next cutscene. That is so unbelievably cruel. I mean, look how much health I've lost trying to get here. Harry then opens up the Chamber of Secrets, which has live snakes sticking out of the sink. Are you telling me that in 50 years, nobody looked at this and went, huh, that looks pretty suspicious? Down the slide we go and reenact the flu powder level, and I'm just thinking, please give me a chocolate frog or something while I'm down here, but no. And then, to make matters worse, there's a boss fight against Lockhart, and I'm hanging by a thread! By some miracle I managed to defeat him, and all I can think of is, please let there be a cauldron in the next room. There's so little of them in this game, but of all the places to have one, it has to be there! Lo and behold, there is a cauldron. But the game reset my health anyway! Literally the one time a cauldron would have been useful, and the game made it completely redundant. So you have to make your way through the chamber, fighting off rats and slugs and whatever, which is fine, but then they decide to throw in stealth sections where you have to sneak past trolls for some reason. The game seems to love sprinkling these in for whatever reason, because you have to do the same thing in the Forbidden Forest, as well as sneak past the teachers to go to Hagrid's hut.
I am vengeance. I am the knight. I am Batman.
Every time these pop up, it just grinds the gameplay to a screeching halt. At least with the teacher section, I kind of understand why it's there, because students aren't supposed to be out at night, but sneaking past these trolls that move so slowly? Yeah, I'm really loving all the standing around I'm having to do. This isn't Metal Gear. I want to cast some spells, damn it! And I think this is my biggest problem with the PlayStation games. It's just a bunch of ideas thrown in and hoping that they stick. The PC port, on the other hand, is a lot more focused on what it wants to be, and it does it well. Finally, we have the battle with the Basilisk, which is split into 2 parts. The first part, you're just hitting it with Flipendo and avoiding its venom, which is easy enough. And then the second part just gets weird. Do you remember that moment in Harry Potter where the basilisk has its own gravitational pull and then shoots lasers out of its teeth, and then Harry deflects it, making it look like the proton stream from Ghostbusters? If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who you gonna call?
Saint Potter.
I actually don't know what to make of this game. Maybe if I hadn't played Philosopher's Stone I would rate it about the same, but as it stands, it feels like a poor cash grab. It's such a shame because I thought that there was a lot of potential in the last game, but for every step this one made to improve it, they also took 2 steps back. But that's just my opinion, and I'd like to get some of your thoughts. Did you enjoy this game? Did you hate it? Do you have any fond memories of it? Let me know in the comments, and I hope to see you in the next video where I'll be covering Chamber of Secrets on the PlayStation 2.